Hello, my pretties. I'm Beryl Dakers. Welcome to Palmetto Scene, home of the amazing stories of unique people, places, and things that South Carolina has to offer. We're here tonight at Deceased Farms in Lexington, South Carolina. A pretty scary but fun place to visit this Halloween season. We begin this episode tonight with a look at the history of Halloween. How exactly did this spooktacular holiday begin?
The holiday of Halloween began around 2,000 years ago. It was a holiday that was celebrated by the Celts, a people that populated Ireland and Scotland in the Isle of Man. The holiday that they celebrated wasn't called Halloween, it was called Samhain. And this festival marked the end of the Celt year. The Celtish calendar was basically divided into two main categories, the dark and the light, winter and summer. And October 31 marked the transition. This was a night that the Celts saw there being a very tenuous hold between our world and the world of the spirits and the fairies known as the Ishi. They would put out food and drink so that the spirits would be happy and they would accept this as a gift and they would be ensured of a prosperous year coming ahead. Some of these Celts would dress up in costumes, and this was a means of protecting themselves from any vengeful spirits that might attack them on this night. This was also a time that the departed souls of the people themselves would come back to our world. And so one tradition that they had was to leave an empty chair in front of the fire, or to leave empty chairs at the feast to welcome their relatives who were back with them on this night. In the 9th century, the Roman Catholic Church tried to temper some of the pagan rituals that were going on, and one of their ways of doing this was to supplant holidays of their own onto the pagan holidays. And so Samhain was changed by the Roman Catholics to what's known as the All-Hallow-Tide, which was a 3-day festival. It started with All Hallows Eve on October 31, followed by All Hallows Day, which was November 1st, that's also known as All Saints' Day. And then finally on November 2nd, All Souls' Day. Starting in the 15th century, a tradition known as souling started, which was when people went door to door. Usually they talked in verses or they sang songs, and in exchange they were given soul cakes, which was food that was meant to appease the dead. The household that gave them was given good fortune for the coming year. All Hallows Eve, October 31, which was Samhain for the Celts, this still was a time where there was this recognition, if not celebration, of the supernatural, and that time when the dead walked the earth. It was thought that people who had died during that year, their spirits were still wandering in this kind of limbo, and they were not to ascend to heaven or descend to hell until November 1st. In the 16th century, there was a tradition that started in Scotland and was also practiced in parts of Ireland, known as guising. And this was similar to souling, with the addition that the people would dress up in costumes and go door to door asking for food and money. And in other parts of the British Isles, it was known as mumming. These traditions held true generation after generation. It was in the 19th century when we had a big influx of Irish and Scottish immigrants in the United States and in Canada that these traditions of guising were adopted here in North America. And slowly, bit by bit, the custom caught on. The holiday of Halloween was very popular in Victorian times. This was the late 1800s, early 1900s. The Victorians were very much into bringing back old traditions. There was very much of an interest in the occult and spiritualism, and they would have parties that largely were for young adults and had many games that were a part of the celebration that were centered around young people and romance. For instance, bobbing for apples. The person that got an apple and bit into it was going to be the next person married. Trick-or-treating, interestingly, was not practiced during the Victorian period. For a long time, adults were kind of flabbergasted about this custom. There weren't a lot of rules centered around it, so people didn't know when it was happening or why these kids were coming to their doors asking for money and for food. What firmed up the custom was a group of kids in Philadelphia in 1950 who donated all the money that they had collected on Halloween night to UNICEF. This became an annual tradition with UNICEF until 1965, when they had amassed so much money by these efforts of children on Halloween that they won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1965. Trick-or-treating for UNICEF became such a big thing that all of a sudden trick-or-treating didn't have that mysterious aspect anymore. Everybody was doing it, and everybody expected children to be on the streets in the neighborhoods on Halloween night, going door to door. Halloween is such a combination of different traditions and customs, but there are two things that have remained consistent since the very beginning, and that is that it's a time where the supernatural and superstitions are recognized, and secondly, it's a time to celebrate and to share food.
Hey, guy. Do you believe in ghosts? Stories about people's experiences can be, shall we say, interesting, but a team from ETV spent the night on the USS Yorktown aircraft carrier, and they came back with some pretty compelling evidence.
I'm Mark Adams, and in 2014 I was a member of the South Carolina ETV production team who came here to Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum to do a story about ghosts on the USS Yorktown aircraft carrier. The story that aired on Palmetto Scene was about the various ghost stories people had experienced, and the ghost tours Bruce Orr, author of several books about hauntings in South Carolina, were giving to the public.
Has a lot of interesting things going on this ship. You get everything from whispers to footsteps to door slamming, hatches slamming, all the way up to full body apparitions. People claim to see a lot of things going on this ship.
A web extra at the time on the South Carolina ETV website was about our team spending the night on the Yorktown conducting our own ghost hunt with Bruce Orr as our guide, and some of the results from that experience. There was some evidence I recorded that I thought was significant, and now I want to go back and revisit that evidence. On October 6, 2014, we set up the equipment, including unmanned cameras, in 3 different places on the ship for the overnight ghost hunt. One of those areas was the ladies' berthing area near the front of the Yorktown, an area not on any of the public tours. Bruce Orr suggested this paranormal hotspot because of previous experiences in one specific hallway. The plan was this. I placed a camera here that I would leave running unmanned looking down this hallway while we walked around the ship. The lights and power had been completely shut down on the ship, and Bruce Orr let us use his laser pointer that could project a grid pattern on the hallway to see if any movement would be caught on tape. I took my still camera and braced it against this metal box right above my video camera. I knew it would be a timed exposure because of the low light situation in the hallway, and I wanted to make sure it was as still as possible. After I took the first photo, I decided to turn the camera and take more of a vertical image in order to see more of the laser grid pattern on the floor. So, 5 seconds later, I turned the camera and took the second photo. I then asked Bruce to walk all the way down and back so I could have footage of a real person walking in the hallway to compare with any footage of a ghost I might have later. And I am rolling. Go ahead and come around the corner. See, by the time you get there, it's really working. I mean, it's really all over you. Yeah. All right, good. Alrighty. All right, now we'll just leave it rolling without us here and see what we get.
Yep.
We then left to begin our investigation elsewhere on the ship. After that day of filming and I was back at ETV, I started watching the video footage and was a little disappointed that nothing unusual was seen. But what did surprise me was the audio captured in that hallway with the laser grid. Throughout the night, strange sounds were heard. At one point, a startling sound was heard, a loud slap on the wall very near the video camera's microphone. I started taking a close look at my photographs and noticed something strange in 2 of them. They were the 2 photos I took of the empty hallway with the laser grid right before we left on our investigation around the ship. Something caught my eye, discrepancies between the 2. As you can see in the first photo, the end of the hallway is completely black, but in the second photo, taken 5 seconds later, you can see the end of the hallway. It's as if there's a big black mass in the first photo that wasn't there in the second photo. Then I noticed in the second photo that this doorway on the side of the hallway is blacked out, where it can be seen in the first photo. I then realized that in the black mass of the first photo, that these pinpoints of light from the laser grid were not pinpoints at all. They were streaks of light, as if in motion. Remember, this was a timed exposure, and all these pinpoints of light from the laser grid are still, except for the ones in the black mass. The next step was to take these photographs and increase the brightness and decrease the contrast. And then it became clear what I had captured in these images. In the first photo, the black mass now appears to be a figure with a head, torso, and 2 legs. The light streaks, which indicate motion, are clearly on this figure. In the second photo, the figure is gone, but in that doorway, the black mass appears to be a leg and a foot stepping into the room. So it appears that I took 2 photos of someone walking down the hallway and stepping into this side room. I know there was no one in the hall as I was taking the photos. Why was it important for you to use those 2 photos that I took in your ghost tours of the USS Yorktown?
What I love the best about using what you guys did, you came out here, you listened to our stories, you took the challenge, the ship, we said we'll let the ship speak for itself, and it did. So you guys come in, ETV comes in, and all of a sudden you guys capture stuff you weren't expecting to capture. To me, that's a lot more credible. The fact that you guys came in here, you were skeptical, you listened to us, you took the challenge, you stayed in the ship that night, and the ship did exactly what we told you it would do. It proved itself to you. As a bonus feature, I turned on an EMF detector, or electromagnetic field detector. Now, paranormal investigators believe that when they come into contact with spirit energy, they can activate. They turn themselves on, they'll light up, So I set that in the floor along the path down this corridor with the ghost grid. You set up the cameras, and we actually secured it, locked it in so nobody would have access. So that was what made it so great for that catch. There's no one coming in or out of this place. You had 2 pictures back to back, shows what it does traveling down the hallway. It turns into a room. But in the background, the EMF detector is actually activated. So whatever this is has passed by and activated that device. Me or you walking down this corridor is not going to set that off. So whatever this is that passed over it, it did. And that was a great catch too, a great added bonus to it.
We like to think here at Patriots Point that any spirit here are friendly. We're Americans. They were here to protect our country. If their spirits are trapped here, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe they continue to watch over this ship. And we have no reason to believe that there's any ill will for any of our spirits that are here. And we share this ship with them.
Have you ever found a trinket while vacationing along the Carolina coast? Ever wonder who it belonged to? What if the person it belongs to has been searching for it desperately for more than 150 years? Well, a young girl has made her presence known along the South Strand to locals and visitors alike. Sightings most often occur along the marsh in Murrells Inlet, and at a grave in All Saints Cemetery in Pawleys Island. She was stripped of her most prized possession just before she took her very last breath. Legend says she's still searching for it.
If you take a stroll along the marsh in Murrells Inlet, keep a lookout for a ring. And if you hear footsteps or a young girl's whisper, Alice may be watching. She is still searching for the ring bestowed to her from her one and only true love. A union against societal aspirations, Alice ignored the wishes of her affluent family and accepted an engagement ring from her beau, a gentle, sweet lumberman. Hoping to squash the romance, Alice's family sent her away to a boarding school in Charleston, known for keeping young ladies in line with their family's marital wishes. Poor fortune struck and Alice fell ill with malaria. The school sent for her brother, Dr. Allard Flagg. By the time the message relayed up the coast, and Allard traveled the beaten path by horse and carriage, Alice's condition had worsened. She was drifting in and out of consciousness. During their travels through the Carolina Low Country, it grew too quiet for Allard's liking. He stopped to see if Alice was still breathing. Under Alice's white dress, Allard noticed a ribbon tied around her neck. As he pulled on the ribbon, out popped a ring. A ring? The engagement he renounced? Even with Alice on her last breath, Allard was so furious, he grabbed the ring and hurled it into the marsh. He then took Alice to her bedroom at the Hermitage. Alice succumbed to malaria shortly thereafter, and she was buried without her ring.
Where's Alice? I heard something when you guys were like at 13, y'all, honestly. You heard something that way, I heard something over there. But I heard a stick break.
Place a ring on top of her grave, walk 13 times backwards, say her name. Supposedly Alice is supposed to pop up and see if that's the ring that she lost from her beloved. Well, we did that, and a friend of mine decided that when nothing happened, she'd jump on that slab and to proclaim Alice was a fake. And we're all horrified that she did that, but we all kind of laughed when we got back to our car. 2 tires were flat, and there was no one at that cemetery but us. Nobody. And then you realize, was Alice really here? Did she really do this to us? Yes, she did. She did. I'm thoroughly convinced. I've told my grandchildren this, I've told all my friends, I've taken them to that grave, and I forbid them to walk on that slab.
Alice has crossed paths with many, even our crew. It was a hot, sunny Carolina afternoon and a bit warm upstairs in the Hermitage. While lifting the camera out of the antique wooden cradle in Alice's bedroom, the air became quite cool. Cool enough to cause a shiver. Alice has made her presence known at the Hermitage for years. The Chandlers' grandfather bought the house about a decade after the Flaggs left the area, after a series of unfortunate events.
When we were at the Hermitage growing up, every night, just about, particularly if we had guests, there were ghost stories told on that porch. And so everybody in the area was familiar with Alice. When they told us the stories, we bought into it like stock and barrel.
They were young.
We believed it. When we went up that first section at night and hit that landing, usually we both were like this.
Right.
We didn't want to see anything, and we closed our eyes and blinded ourselves.
Get in bed and cover our heads up.
Well, one night during World War II, Sis Peterkin, our sister, was outside in a hammock on the front of the Hermitage, and it was kind of a stormy night, and she screamed, and when she screamed, I went outside, she pointed, and I saw something white that just was doing this, and she said, when I got there, that it had already been coming down. That's why she screamed.
Sis and Granny, their mother, they said that they saw a woman pass through the middle in white, just kind of float through.
So if you take a stroll along the inlet, especially near the former Wachesaw plantation, keep a lookout for Alice and her ring. Or if you wander down to All Saints Cemetery in Pawleys Island, pay your respects to Alice. She often rewards her guests with a visit.
Now, I do believe in ghosts. And I think we all believe in ghosts, and so I didn't avoid accepting the possibility that could have happened. Anything is possible, and I'm certain that we have ghosts.
My ring. Where's my ring?
For more stories about our state and more details on the stories you've just seen, do visit our website at palmettoscene.org. And of course, don't forget to follow us on social media, whether Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, at SCETV, #PalmettoScene. As we leave you tonight, we thank our hosts here at Deceased Farms, and we leave you with Palmetto Postcard, taking a look at the many things that go bump in the night, right here at Deceased Farms in Lexington. For Palmetto Scene, I'm Beryl Dakers. Good night, stay strong, and thanks for watching.